Welcome into Shot and Vipp, a podcast brought to you by Inside Carolina this football season by Johnny T-Shirt. Co-hosting this, I'm Taylor Vippolis, joined by my fellow Carolina football letterman and teammate, Jeff Schoettmer. Jeff, we are entering uncharted territory for North Carolina. It's another victory Monday. Carolina beats up on Syracuse 40-7. Carolina moves to 5-0 now on the season. I'm almost at a loss for words with what we're watching with this North Carolina team, but in the best way possible, what were your biggest takeaways from that Syracuse game?
We got a damn good football team in Chapel Hill. We got a complete team. The offense, defense, special teams all made winning plays in this game to help us secure the victory. I mean, it's our fourth victory by double digits versus Power 5 opponents. That's got to be, one of the only few teams in college football that can say that. I just loved the attitude we come out with. It's just such like a workman-like attitude. We're laser focused. We're just playing really good complementary football from all phases. We passed the eye test, the quote unquote eye test that's so big in college football playoff rankings is they talk about, passing the eye test and winning big when you're supposed to. And coming into this game, I said it last week on the podcast. I was like, I don't care if we win this game by 3 points, 4 points, 7 points. I don't even care if we don't cover this game, just because I believe Syracuse was a good team and they were going to present some challenges, and we completely dominated that game from start to finish. And that was the most impressive victory, and probably since the Miami victory in 2020. From just complete football, we were in total control the whole time. Just awesome win.
Yeah, this has been more of the same for North Carolina outside of that App State game where they go in, they're the ones dictating how a game is going to be played. Outside of like a few drives here and there for some teams, Minnesota to start the second half, Pittsburgh the first few drives, like outside of like maybe 4 or 5 drives from a total of 4 games, like this North Carolina team has shown that they are like the expectation shouldn't be just to get to Charlotte right now. The expectation should be like win the ACC. You have such a good quarterback in Drake May. You have a ton of skill players. We'll get to Tez Walker in a second and what his influence was for this offense. You have Omar Hampton who's running the ball great, and then we've said that North Carolina just needs like an average defense when you have all of that I just mentioned. The defense is a lot better than average. And I think that's something that's kind of flying under the radar with how well they're playing. I think a lot of people can see that the defense is a lot better, but a lot better from defense ranked in the 110s would probably be a defense, somewhere in the 80s. Like this defense, I have the actual numbers of where they are. Somebody posted them on the message board.
I
Their
think we're
total defense,
top 30 in scoring defense.
their total defense is 35th. They're giving up 334.6 yards per game. Their scoring defense is 30th. They're giving up 19 points per game. Their red zone defense is tied for 31st in the country. Like what we're watching is a top 25 offense, a clear top 25 offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the country and a defense that's top 40. And when you pair that together, it's like, yeah, the goal should be to win an ACC championship. And I think you're right with that like workman type mentality because they come off a bye. In years past, North Carolina has struggled a bit coming off a bye, especially when they're dealing with a lot of success and all the things that come with success. We talked about that like trap game mentality, and that Syracuse team was averaging 38.6 points per game entering that game. North Carolina pitches a first half shutout against the Orange, their first shutout since the first half shutout since 2021 against Duke. I want to talk Tez Walker because I feel when we were talking about the South Carolina game, we were like, the closer to game time that Tez Walker is able to play, the more it's going to be able to fire up the team. How do you think North Carolina handled Tez Walker coming back? And then how do you think Tez Walker influences the entire offense when I I think the biggest thing is you get rid of the what ifs. What if North Carolina has Tez Walker? We kind of saw what that what if is.
I just want to talk about how exciting it is for him, his family, and our fan base together. To see our community, rally around this guy and his family, and the support that we had for Tez, for a North Carolina kid who transferred in, and he's not like we didn't have this long recruiting process with Tez. He's kind of new to the Tar Heel community, and for us to just rally around this kid, I've never met him in person, but he seems like such a good kid, comes from a great family. He gets everything he deserves, right? An under recruited kid who just has progressed his college career and gotten better and better and made himself into an NFL draft pick. You know, I texted with multiple people, this week after the news came out that Tez was finally eligible, and a lot of people were saying this is the most proud they've ever been in the university, just in terms of we had a firm stance on something. We believed Tez should be able to play. We believed we were right, and we did everything in our power to fight for our guys and get the situation corrected. So I just want to give a shout out to all the people that were, had a hand in this and just never gave up and were willing to do anything they could to make Tez Walker eligible, and rightfully so.
If this situation happens in 2010, Tez Walker is ruled ineligible. Carolina hands over some other stuff, and even more players are somehow ruled ineligible.
For sure. The crazy thing to me was the NCAA was saying we were missing stuff, but okay, if we're missing information, then give us a list of what you need to see, and we'll gladly do that for you. So, they're full of shit as always. I will say this podcast was optimistic the whole year that he was going to come back. So, Shot Vipp podcast, we provided the optimism. We didn't do the dirty work. We did the easy thing, just talking about it, how, hey, I think Tez Walker, there's a chance he's still going to play. So I want to give ourselves a little pat on the back for that. But going back to your questions, I thought it was smart how we eased him into the game, and we kind of let the other guys who had been producing in his absence, they started. Tez came off the bench, and we threw him a couple passes. Most of the stuff we did was, kind of short hitch routes, speed outs, intermediate. I love that in the first quarter or second quarter, we threw that cross country route as we were approaching the red zone. Drake overthrew him, and it was probably Drake's worst throw of the day. And we had Tez, wide open for a touchdown. But I love that we called a shot for him to go get in the end zone. Obviously he's a skilled player. He can run. And that was the perfect play call for it. But how electric would have Kenan Stadium been if Tez, got his first touchdown,
Oh, man.
Walk into the student section? That would have been, fun to see. But I'm sure we'll see that this weekend. But the other thing I want to talk about is, Coach Chizik was just complimenting Tez so much about his effort and intensity on scout team, for the past 3 weeks. And for a player to be deemed ineligible, and in such a catastrophic way, and just for him to stay locked in and do whatever he can to help our team. And you can see our DBs getting better throughout the season. So look, give Tez credit for competing against our guys and embracing his role before he was actually ruled eligible. But look, we're gonna unleash Tez. It's kind of like a slow start. And look, he had 5 or 6 catches, 40, 50 yards. He made a great catch on the sideline in front of Coach Brown. And that kind of showed his ability to go, go get it. He looked like a small forward on the basketball team, climbing the ladder and going to high point the ball. So he just brings another element to our offense, just in terms of his height, his speed, his down the field ability. Look, man, we got a stable full of horses. With all those other receivers in the first 4 games getting some production and playing well and getting confidence, J.J. Jones, Nate, Kobe, and now we add, a true number 1 into our offense. Whew, watch out. Watch out.
That was something I mentioned in my post-game video, where J.J. Jones is playing with so much confidence right now. He had that huge third down catch in Saturday's game to extend a drive where there's so much trust in him working outside the numbers and being able to beat defensive backs and on those like comeback routes. And if he doesn't beat you on the comeback route, he could hit that post route. So a cornerback can't just be kind of guessing where he's going to go. He's your wide receiver 3. Then you have somebody like Kobe Paysor. I'm not sure. I couldn't really tell if that ball got tipped to Kobe Paysor, but the one that was kind of behind him, he tips it up, goes for 77 yards, one of Carolina's longest play on the day. He's your wide receiver 4. Like the fact that Carolina right now is in a situation where you have Tez Walker, Nate McCollum, JJ Jones, Kobe Paysor, and that's not even to mention the tight ends. And the biggest thing with Tez Walker coming back is that I think it's just going to make everybody else's job so much easier on that offense with his ability to stretch the field over the top. And I think you did see how much room there was to operate in the middle, where Nate McCollum goes for 135 yards. Bryson Nesbitt, who everybody talks about as this like prototypical NFL tight end with his combination of size and speed, he has one of his best games this season. And then I also think you have a better run game when teams can't load the box, where like in the Pitt game where we saw Pitt, challenge Drake May to try to beat them, which will if you're North Carolina, you'll take that opportunity every time for Drake May to go out and win you a game. But I think you did see a more balanced rushing attack too. But I don't know how much of that was Tez Walker's influence, how much of that was Carolina getting somebody like Willie Lampkin back. And I think the other thing when we're talking about Tez Walker that I think doesn't get enough credit is how well this coaching staff did at identifying the necessary talent in the transfer portal. You look at Tez Walker, Nate McCollum, just 2 game changers at wide receiver. Willie Lampkin is Carolina's best offensive lineman through 5 games into the season. And then we'll talk about him later, but Elijah Huzzy looks like a star at corner. So I do think that the coaching staff and whoever's in control of the roster management and keeping an eye on the transfer portal and also Carolina's NIL collective, I think all those pieces kind of deserve a lot of credit for getting players to Chapel Hill. How did you think Chip Lindsey did at calling a game, especially getting somebody like Tez Walker back and maybe not trying to force things early on?
I thought he called a great game. We were just, the word that I'll use is just efficiency. We were efficient and balanced, right? So early down runs where we're getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yards, stay ahead of the chains. And then the thing that I loved the most was our passing attack in terms of we were throwing the ball to the slots and we were throwing the ball over the middle of the field. There was a good mix of, hey, we're going to dink and dunk a little bit, get the ball to our skill players in space, but we're also going to take some down the field shots. You see two long throws to Nate. You see the shot to Tez Walker, which we didn't hit on, but at least we're trying to get the ball downfield. I loved that we got our tight ends back involved. Bryson Nesbitt is a mismatch in the slot. If you put a linebacker on him, he's too long and athletic. If you put a safety on, he's too tall. He had a great game catching balls over the middle of the field, and you see how well Drake throws the ball inside the hashes. Obviously he has the arm strength to throw deep and outside and all that, but he's pinpoint accurate when he throws the ball in the middle of the field. So that was great to see. We had a little bit of issues in the red zone. We didn't, our touchdown percentages in the red zone weren't as, high as they normally are, but, put up 40 points. I thought he called a really good game. It's exactly what we needed. When you have 400 passing yards and 200 rushing yards, I don't think you can be very critical of an offensive coordinator. So, I give him an A.
You mentioned the credit that we deserved earlier in the podcast about Tez Walker and how Carolina was hopeful with knowing that things were going on behind the scenes. The other thing I think we kind of deserve credit for is the people that were kind of concerned with Drake May through 2 games because he wasn't putting up the numbers, where He comes out on Saturday. He's 33 of 47 for 442 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, there are rightful things to maybe be concerned about for this North Carolina team, areas where they can be handcuffed later on down the road, challenges that they might face. Drake May is not one of them. He is an unbelievable talent at the quarterback position, and he just makes it look so easy back there. It's really remarkable the way he opens up the game. I know you've been a huge fan of him when he opens up the offense with his legs, and I think we did see that too a bit yesterday, where he has 14 attempts for 55 yards on the ground, including a rushing touchdown too. And he's a lot more shifty than people give him credit for. Like,
He
he
is.
the way that some people were talking about Garrett Schrader going into the game, like he's a big guy that's kind of tough to bring down. Drake is big, but like he has some make you miss potential when he is running. Um, But yeah, the offense was really good, and I think the other thing that we should probably hit on with the offense is they're playing with, like, yes, they can beat you with the skill position guys, but this team has also shown that if you want to get into this toughness battle and trying to out tough the other team, they're more than comfortable doing that too.
Yeah, I mean, look, you see the App State game where, Hampton runs wild, Minnesota, who's known as this tough physical team, Pitt, who's known as this tough physical team, and we constant, consistently, I couldn't find the word there. We're having body blow after body blow, and we're running the ball well. The one thing I want to talk about is Corey Gaynor. My favorite play of the game was probably, so he gets his helmet knocked off, and he's still blocking his ass off. I think the Syracuse nose guard like has his hands to his face, and look, Gainer's helmet gets ripped off, and he's still blocking his ass off trying to get the first down. And he comes up, shows some emotion, some grittiness, some toughness. Like, that's the nastiness you need as an offensive lineman. And he kind of sets the tempo for the rest of him and Willie Lampkin. They play with an edge to him, and that's we haven't seen that out of our offensive line in years. Just to be a prick, to be gritty, to be nasty. Like, that's what you want from your offensive line. And, he's played a lot of football, and I know him and Drake have a great relationship. So, yes, he's playing well in the field, but he also provides, that leadership factor, that toughness to kind of set the tone for our offense. So, I wanted to give him credit. I hope some people noticed that. But, yeah, I mean,
The offense, man, it's unbelievable.
yeah, yeah.
It's unbelievable what we're watching, and it really shouldn't be surprising because North Carolina has Drake May, but to see everybody else kind of rallying around and seeing the way that not only the coaching staff has gotten the most out of players, but just the players that the coaching staff has gotten to Chapel Hill to put North Carolina into this position where, um, like we said earlier, like it's not only enough to get to the ACC championship at this point. I think you have the talent to win it all. And then from there, if Carolina can run the table, it's like who knows from that point. But before we get to the defense, I'm gonna look at the offensive grades from Pro Football Focus. The top graded player for North Carolina, Nate McCullum with a 76.5. Drake May was number 2 with a 75. Corey Gaynor was number 3, 74.5. Bryson Nesbitt, there was a tie for fourth and fifth. So it was Bryson Nesbitt, 74.2, and Spencer Rowland, 74.2. So they were really high on Carolina's offensive line, which hasn't always been the case. It's normally been Willie Lampkin kind of leading the way. So to see Corey Gaynor up there, to see Spencer Rowland up there, that's a good sign for this North Carolina team as they continue on with the season. But before we get to the defense, have to take a minute real quick to talk about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. It's the perfect stretch of games right now, a bunch of home games for people to be in town in Chapel Hill. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill, visit Johnny T-shirt on Franklin Street. If you're not going to be in Chapel Hill, visit them online at johnnytshirt.com. They are great people, great customer service. And for the football fan, you need more gear. We're gearing up for the colder weather. They have the cold gear. North Carolina has a top 15 team. Get somebody in your life something from Johnny T-shirt. They'll appreciate it. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders at Johnny T-shirt. Shot, the North Carolina defense. I mentioned some of the numbers earlier. 30th in scoring defense. What was your overarching theme when you are watching this defense and you are seeing them stack success after success week after week?
So it wasn't as disruptive as the South Carolina game, just in terms of sack numbers, TFLs, et cetera, but almost more impressive than the South Carolina game. To hold Syracuse to 0 points in the first half is that's really, really, really good football. Just because a team game plans all week for our defense, right? An offense puts in all these new wrinkles that they're going to run to kind of expose the weaknesses of our defense. And for us to pitch a first half shutout is very impressive. The thing that I love we're doing is we're tackling really well, and that always hasn't been the case in seasons past. And even earlier in the year, like when Syracuse completes an 8-yard pass against our corners, they're now hitting them and they're going down at 8 yards. There's no trickle effect where they're, bleeding for a couple extra yards. We're missing a tackle and they're gaining, getting an explosive play. Our linebackers have always been sure tackles. They're playing well. The thing that I liked was normally in a lopsided game, like you see some garbage time touchdowns and, the defense kind of letting up in the second half. For us to only allow 7 in the whole game, that's really good football. And that shows that the depth that we've continued to develop, that our young guys are going in there and playing well. I thought it was a really impressive win. We didn't, there wasn't anything like super flashy about what we did. I think we just played good, sound football. I kind of challenged our interior defensive linemen, in the pod last week about, hey, we need more plays from them. The Murphys of the world, the Tamari Foxes of the world, the Travis Shaw, hell, big fella, it's time for you to go earn your money, So I saw Murphy make a couple TFLs. I saw Fox play pretty well, probably his best game this year. And then Travis Shaw was in on 2 big tackles. One that was a third down stop in the first half, and then another one where I think it was another third down stop. We're getting some production from them because, in my opinion, in the last couple weeks, that was the weakness of our defense. So everyone's kind of elevating their game a little bit. And, I think we can talk a little bit more about individual play because there's some guys that I think that we need to talk about, and I'll let you kind of put your 2 cents in.
Yeah, the other player, when you are mentioning some of those interior players, the other player that I thought at least had a moment where he kind of flashed was Kedrick Bingley-Jones, where Schrader is looking to break outside the pocket. Bingley-Jones kind of sets the edge, funnels everything back inside. That was what I was the most impressed with watching this defense, knowing that they had a game plan, knowing that Coach Chizik had an emphasis to funnel everything inside, make sure you set the edge, make sure you were focused on your gap integrity, because we've talked about that at times where North Carolina gets 9 sacks in the first game and they come out the next game and they're just pinning their ears back thinking that they're going to just be able to replicate that success getting after the quarterback. And that kind of leads to that over aggression to where you're overshooting your lanes. And I think that was what I was most impressed with North Carolina, where the entire talk into this game about Syracuse was, how effective can Garrett Schrader be on the running with his legs in the running game, because that has been something that's killed North Carolina in the past, those rushing quarterbacks. And especially when you're watching the Syracuse team in the lead up to the game and you see Schrader goes for 195 rushing yards when they play Purdue, and North Carolina holds him to 10 attempts, 28 yards, 2.8 yards per carry for Schrader. What did you see from North Carolina in being able to contain him in the pocket and kind of funneling everything inside? And just from your experience playing with Chizik, what is that like where it feels like he's handing you guys the blueprint. And if you guys just focus on what he's teaching, that he's going to put you in a place for success.
I mean, you're exactly right, first of all, on opposing quarterbacks' rushing skills being our Achilles heel as defense for the last couple of years. We've seen consistently year over year over year that a running quarterback against a UNC defense, you bet the over rushing yards because, for whatever reason, we can't stop them. But so it was great to see us kind of step up to the challenge. And it even goes back to, 2 weeks ago at Pitt. You see the first drive where Jerkovic has two big runs over 15 yards, and we ID the mistakes and we get them corrected later in the game. So it's a similar scheme that we ran from Pitt last or 2 weeks ago to what we did versus Syracuse. I thought our edges held up, and we didn't let Schrader get on the edge. We kind of made him run in between the tackles, or he couldn't really get to the perimeter. So I wish I could go into like film breakdown like Jason Staples does and be able to show you exactly what we're doing, but just be able to talk on a surface level, and we hit him when he was running. He's a big guy, and he's had some success, but we did a great job containing him. And because he's not a dynamic thrower, he has some talent, but to make him beat you with your arm, I don't think he's going to do that majority of the time. But two guys I want to point out are Don Chapman and Gio Biggers, because I haven't been hard on them all year, but I think that they're not huge playmakers, and I thought Don Chapman played one of his best games as a Tar Heel yesterday. He's kind of caught some flack. He's played a lot of football, but he hasn't made a bunch of plays. But he was consistently in the right place at the right time. He tackled very well. He got a couple pressures on the quarterback. He's seen a lot of things, so he's an experienced player, and it was good to see him step up. And Gio Biggers, he played a good game as well. The thing that I love about Don is, and this is hard to be able to explain without film, but there was a play early in the game that it was a formation and a play that other teams have hit us on earlier in the year. It's what we call crack replace. So Don Chapman is the final fitter in the run game, and the single receiver to the short side of the field, he cuts his split down, and they do a running play, and he goes and cracks the safety, and the corner now has to replace and make the tackle. Like, that's a very common play in football of all levels, crack replace. And weeks past, Don Chapman has not really asserted himself in the run game, but I finally saw him. He corrected his mistakes from the past few weeks of really diving down and being aggressive in the run game, and allowing the cornerback to see that and coming off the crack replace and making the play. So just little things like that, and maybe we can dive into some film later this week or going forward about how we can show that. But just little things like that is we're correcting our mistakes from prior weeks, and applying it and really getting better. So hats off to those guys.
Yeah, Syracuse has only 129 yards passing. They have only 221 yards total. And when you're watching the defense, every level just seems so much better. The corners look good. The safeties look good. The linebackers, we kind of knew what the linebackers already were. And you are getting production on the defensive front. Even if it's not equaling sacks, that's one of the things we've kind of talked about before, where the sacks can be a bit misleading as a number for how dominant a team can be defensively, because Carolina only has one sack yesterday or on Saturday against Syracuse. It was a Cedric Gray sack when he forced the fumble. But you're watching that defense and you're like, okay, they had one sack, but that defense is playing really good and playing at such a high level right now. Credit to all the players, credit to all the coaches and the game plans that they're putting in. I mentioned him earlier, Elijah Huzzy, the star. He's playing that star position, but he is a star defensively for this North Carolina team. A quick stat before I let you talk about what you saw from Elijah Huzzy. 179 cornerbacks in college football this week played at least 47 snaps. according to Pro Football Focus, the second highest grade out of all of them, Elijah Huzzy, 88.1. So I mean, the what Carolina is getting from Elijah Huzzy, it's hard to talk too much about what he means for this defense and how he kind of raises everybody else's level.
It's the playmaking ability he has is something we haven't seen in a long, long time at the defensive back position. He's making game-changing plays that are affecting our whole team. You know, that interception he had, you know, I went back and watched the film. He's playing, it's a third down. He's playing inside leverage man at 6 yards off. It's, you know, 3rd and 5. So most of the time when it's 3rd and 5, the offense is going to run a route, usually to the sticks, and try to get the first down that way. Elijah is sitting at the sticks. You know, he has great footwork off the initial release of the receiver. And for him to play inside leverage man and have the ball skills to pick the ball off and save it from, you know, touching the ground, like that's just a rare blend of ball skills, intelligent footwork. Like he's the full package as a football player. And I know our guys love playing with him. His playmaking is contagious. And I mean, we got an all ACC defensive back on our roster for the first time in maybe 10 years, 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, he's like Cedric Gray. They raise everyone else's, you know, expectations, and, you know, they hold people accountable. I know he's a guy that practices really hard. If you're that good of a player, he's definitely a really good practice player. So he's great for our team, and you know, we're lucky to have that guy.
Yeah, you mentioned the raising everybody else's level, and you know, as the season goes on, I think teams are going to start trying him less and less. How do you think his play has kind of improved the play of players like Marcus Allen and Tayon Holloway, where we're watching the South Carolina game, and Tayon Holloway is somebody who's getting picked on, but as the season's kind of gone on, this North Carolina team really doesn't have too many players that you can pick on.
Yeah, I think it's reps from our outside cornerbacks. Like Marcus Allen and Tayon Holloway have now had games and games of reps, and you can see their growth. And you know, like Tayon Holloway in the first game, you know, he probably let up over 100 yards, but he was competing and he was making them make contested catches. But now that's paying off. Like he's getting more confidence, he's getting more reps. So I don't know per se if it's like Huzzy's impact directly, but you know, he's playing in the slot and kind of locking down his portion of the field, and allowing Holloway and Green to have more balls thrown at them because they don't want to throw at Huzzy. But I think it's just them gaining confidence, them getting reps, and then I'm sure behind the scenes, it's like it's Huzzy in their ear in the film room, it's Huzzy on the practice field with them, it's Huzzy on the sideline. Like I think he's just the complete package. So he's just like an uplifting guy that brings everyone else with him.
Yeah, and Carolina gets a new cornerback coach. They bring in Huzzy and kind of the leadership he gets. And I think the biggest thing watching this secondary, like I remember one catch on Saturday that Holloway did give up. It was like a back shoulder throw to where the Syracuse receiver just made a great play on the ball. Like Holloway was right there. That's
Was that
kind of
on our sideline, on the
yeah,
UNC sideline? Yeah,
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 exactly. Late in like probably third or fourth quarter.
yep.
But that's kind of been the biggest difference when I'm watching this defense. Like they're limiting the explosive plays that they give up. I'm pretty sure I saw a stat that North Carolina's only given up one play of 40 plus yards, which is only like four or five teams in the country have done that. Where in comparison to last year, you're watching some of the players out there on the defense, and you're like, there isn't a player in the secondary 20 yards within where this receiver was. And at the very least, if players like Tayon Holloway or Marcus Allen are giving up receptions, they're stride for stride with receivers. And when a receiver does make a play, they're bringing him down right away. I looked up the missed tackles on Pro Football Focus. They only missed 6 tackles the entire game. And with how efficient offenses are, and with how athletic everybody is nowadays, 6 missed tackles, like
It's really good.
you sign up for that every week defensively. And Mentioning the
Like
pro football
I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we're tackling a lot better. And it's
and
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, and the pro football focus grades before we take a look at what's next for Carolina. I'm gonna go off the players that played like a good amount of reps because there's some players in here. Uh, Shout out to Cade Law, played 2 snaps and he has a 86.3 grade on Pro Football Focus. That's one I'm putting that on my Instagram bio. if I come in and I play two snaps, and they're giving me that high of a grade, I'm putting that on my profile. But for the guys that played a good amount, Elijah Huzzy 88.1, Cedric Ray 83.1, Miles Murphy 74.4, Tamari Fox 72.7, and then Don Chapman 71.6.
Vip,
So
I'm gonna give myself another pat on the back, but my eye test is usually right because those are all the guys I talked about. Hey, it's nice to be,
validated.
validated,
Yeah.
affirmation, reconfirmed, whatever you want to
Yeah.
say.
The question actually, I just thought of this question before we get to the what's next portion for Carolina. When you look at this North Carolina team and how they're going out there and they're controlling games, what kind of similarities do you see between this team and our team in 2015, where we were going into games and we were like, there's really nothing you could do game plan wise to beat us. Like the only way you beat us is if we have a really off day or we have some like uncharacteristic mistakes. But for the most part, we know if we just go out there and execute our game plan, there really isn't a team that can hang with us.
Yeah, there's talent all over the board, obviously led by a really good quarterback. But I think the biggest thing we're seeing with this team is just their confidence growing and growing and growing. And confidence is a danger mother effer, bro. When a team gets confidence and you can see them play and their energy and their swag, like look out. Like seriously, when you're consistently beating teams by double digits and your team's just like more people are getting to play, the camaraderie on the team's better. We're spreading the ball around on offense. I think we had 10 to 12 guys touch the ball. We're playing a lot of guys on defense. We're rotating defensive linemen. We have a young linebacker that gets a pick. That boosts morale for the team.
Yep.
We get young DBs playing. We got sub packages on defense where Hardy's playing, Lane's playing, Chapman's coming in. Like, look, when more guys play, it's just winning's fun, winning's contagious, and we got some confidence and some swag right now. It's a little bit different than the swag that Colorado's got. Like we got this more like reserve swag that
We don't got
we're
rollies.
good. Yeah, we don't got rollies, but we got dubs, and we got like I'm hyped. I'm hyped to be at the game next week. This is a fun team to watch.
Yeah, it's hard not to be excited about this team if you have a rooting interest and you care, whether you're an alumni, a fan, a letterman. Like this team has kind of rejuvenated the entire fan base when you're looking around, and you might have had an idea of where this team could be, but like it's kind of gone even past those ideas when you see how flawless they are playing on both sides of the ball. What's next for North Carolina is another home game. It's the 7:30 kickoff against Miami. Miami completely ruined the vibes going into this game. This should have been a top 15 matchup. They had a 99.9% chance to win the game. They don't take a knee against Georgia Tech. They fumble. Georgia Tech goes down the field. They're not thinking just field goal. The Miami cornerback slips. Haynes King beats them over the top, and just like that, Miami loses a game where they really had no business losing. What are your kind of thoughts as we get into this game?
Look, this is so Coach Brown has been talking about since he got back to Carolina for the second time about, we're a regional team right now, but we want to be a national team, right? Georgia's a national team, Bama's a national team, those Ohio State. Right now we're very well known in the ACC, but this is our chance, on prime time, ABC, Saturday night. It's really our coming out party for the nation. Like I think everyone's aware of who Drake May is, but they really haven't seen us play. So our whole team, like it's time for us to make a statement on national TV Saturday night to show who Carolina football really is and put ourselves on the map going forward. That we're not just trying to compete for the ACC championship. Hell, let's go get in the college football playoff. Like this is going to be our best chance. So it's kind of like a coming out party for us as on the brink of let's become a national program, especially this year. I'm not saying like all the time we're going to be this perennial top 5 team for the rest of eternity, but hell, we got a chance to really make a name for ourselves on the national stage, like similar to how Louisville did last night. I think no
Yeah.
one really, they know that they're a good team, but like if you ask someone in Florida if Louisville's good, they wouldn't tell you they're 5-0 or 6-0. But so they put a ass whooping on Notre Dame, and they made a big statement. So it's time for us to do something on the national stage as well.
Yeah, and then we'll conclude the podcast with our pick of the weekend presented by our friends at Congruity. They are a North Carolina-based national coverage, local presence, personal support straight from the Tar Heel State. They are empowering small and mid-sized business owners with HR and payroll outsourcing, enabling you to grow your business while they take care of your greatest assets, your people, and they're doing it the entire time with top-of-the-line technology, services for every stage of your business's growth, with a state-of-the-art online platform. And the people at Congruity are obsessed with customer service. They become part of your team, doing the heavy lifting, providing essential admin support with a single point of contact and support available on demand with services that are tailor-made, transforming organizations. Congruity has helped hundreds of businesses improve and enhance their day-to-day lives, level up your HR capabilities, save money, unlock game-changing growth. Visit congruityhr.com/Tar Heels to learn more about Congruity. Fill out a quick form to be connected to the consultants, and they'll give Inside Carolina listeners or viewers a payroll and HR assessment for free. That's congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Jeff, we mentioned it last week. The way that Congruity makes it easier for businesses, we want to make it easier for the people that are going to be out there betting games. Last week, I gave UCLA -3.5. The Bruins have the comeback. They win by 7, I'm pretty sure. So that was a win for me. You had Colorado -4. Colorado's up 7 late in that game. They can't get a stop, and then they just need a field goal. So Colorado wins, but they don't cover the spread. It was a tough one for you. I'll let you start this week. What's your pick of the weekend?
So UNC, I think there's some books that have a -3. There's some that have a -1.5. That is insane. So my lock of the week is UNC -3. I'll even play it up to -6.5. Like hammer that thing. Get Thor's hammer. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, like that's a lock. I know I said Colorado was a lock last week. Let's forget that. They should have won and covered.
I think you were on the right side. You were on the right side in the Colorado game. For 80% of that game, it felt like the right side, and 80% of my UCLA pick felt like I was on the right side. I'm also going to go North Carolina. Whatever the spread is, 1.5 to 3, somewhere in that range. I'm upgrading this game to a must win because I don't think you could lose to a coach like Mario Cristobal.
Must win.
The fact that Miami is coming off that gut wrenching of a loss and wondering how they're going to respond. It's not like they're staying in Miami. They now have to pick back up. You see the players on the sideline questioning like, what are we doing in that situation? And I think there's either two ways Miami comes out of this game, where one, they kind of rally around each other and rally around the coaches, which the coaches just let you down in a massive way. So that could be tough for them, or they come out and they quit because North Carolina gets out to an early lead. So I think we'll know pretty early which Miami team we're going to get. And if there's anything that we know from the past, it's that Mario Cristobal is not the best in-game coach. He's not even a good in-game coach. He's going to win you the off seasons and win you those recruiting battles, but leaves a lot to be desired with the amount of talent he brings to Coral Gables. And then, I think North Carolina is at home, and Miami is a team that when they face adversity in the past, they do have a tendency to quit, as most like front runners do. So I'm joining you, -1.5, -3, whatever the line is. We ride together, we die together, man.
Let's go. Let's go, baby.
So that is our pick of the weekend, presented by our friends at Congruity. North Carolina back in action, 7:30 game from Chapel Hill, Kenan Stadium, under the lights, the ABC game against the University of Miami. We'll see if North Carolina can keep their perfect record going and get to 6-0. But Shot, appreciate the time as always, man, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Appreciate everybody. See you guys in Chapel Hill next weekend. Can't wait.